Thanks for joining us. And today we're going to talk about Kriya Yoga and the 5 hindrances. So the 5 hindrances are universal to meditation, and what they are is impediments for one's meditation development. These 5 hindrances are the following. Number 1, sensual craving, which is where the mind is attracted to particular phenomena because one is experiencing a feeling of pleasure when one has that experience. Number 2 is aversion, which is the opposite of sensual craving. It is not liking something. It is an aversion towards experiencing something, wanting to get away from it. Number 3, restlessness. The mind is too restless to be able to be collected around an object. It skirts around. It doesn't want to focus. Number 4, sloth and torpor. Sloth being the bodily laziness, where one doesn't want to move, one doesn't want to make an effort, and torpor being the mental laziness. Number 5 is doubt. And doubt can include doubt in oneself, doubt in the practice, and also the inability to discern what state one is actually in. And so these 5 hindrances are rooted in the taints, the asavas, which are greed, hatred, and delusion. They are what color one's consciousness and influence one's perceptions. So normally the hindrances arise because one has acted in an unwholesome way that precipitates a conditioning of the mind, leading to this karmic effect of the hindrance arising. So for example, if one has the intent to harm other beings, the hindrance of ill will arise. If one takes what is not given, in other words, stealing, one will have the hindrance of restlessness arise. If one indulges in sensual or sexual misconduct, the hindrance of sensual craving will arise. If one indulges in telling lies, the hindrance of doubt will arise. And if one indulges in intoxicants, the hindrance of sloth and torpor will arise. And so the impact of the 5 hindrances arising in meditation and not being dealt with is that it delays one's progression in meditation. And so you may be thinking, well, let's get rid of these hindrances entirely. What can we do to get rid of these hindrances? Well, it's not that simple. There is a strategy that a lot of people in meditation use, and in Kriya Yoga, one uses this as well in various degrees, depending on the school. So some people in meditation, to deal with distracting thoughts, try to concentrate. And by doing such a very strong concentration, they end up suppressing the hindrances from arising. This will work temporarily, but it will not work long term. And so if you've ever had the experience or know somebody who's had the experience where somebody has had a great blissful meditation and they're feeling good and then they're walking around after and they're like, oh, this is great. And then something triggers them and then they go off into a very strong emotional reaction. Well, guess what that is? That is a hindrance manifesting into action, basically a birth of action. And the reason is because that hindrance was not dealt with. It was suppressed, if you will, during one's meditation. And I have had my fair share of experience with this and have seen many people in Kriya Yoga community who have also had that experience. The idea from this perspective about trying to push away the hindrances is that people want to experience bliss and be free from the hindrances, but they never do anything to deal with them. Guess what? We've got to do work to get rid of them. We need to be able to learn how to let them go. And if one is too concentrated in meditation or too absorbed in a meditative state, it effectively suppresses that hindrance, any hindrance from arising. The effect is basically like if you took a beach ball and you were standing in the ocean and you pushed it under the surface of the water, that is like suppressing the hindrance. And when you release the beach ball, it's going to fly up into your face with redoubled force. That is what happens when you use too much concentration and absorption in meditation. It suppresses the hindrances. It makes it seem as if you have transcended them. In actual fact, they are still sitting there and they will come up. and they will affect your meditation, and they will affect your life, and they will destroy your peace of mind, and so on and so on. So you can't just eradicate them because they're something that you have created. We have created these hindrances through our own action, basically acting in a state of an unwholesome mind, and precipitating that action creates a karmic effect, and then it preconditions the next arising of our consciousness, and that comes up in our face. And if we learn how to let it go, we can lessen the power of that hindrance and it will start to dissipate. Or if we suppress it, we have put it in a box for a certain period of time and it's just going to jump out of the box again into our face. So that strategy is not effective. What we need to learn how to do is to open up the spacious awareness so that hindrances can arise during our actual meditation. We want that. You know why we want that? Because the hindrances that arise let us know what we are actually attached to. And it is the attachment that is creating the whole chain, the whole karmic chain of suffering, so that we have a perception of the world that is not based on truth, not based on reality. It's based on our wishful thinking or our tainted perceptions of reality. That's really what the hindrances represent. It's a tainting, a misperception of our consciousness and clinging to things that we actually aren't, building a false sense of self based on these misperceptions, which is basically the essence of ignorance. So when we're suppressing the hindrances with too much concentration, we're just creating more problems for ourselves later. We're not actually dealing with the situation. So what's the intelligent thing to do? Well, the intelligent thing to do is say, okay, we have an issue with these hindrances, let's deal with it. Because if one's perspective is that all one needs to do is to maintain absorption in a bliss state, and that is a solution for all one's ills, well, guess what? That person is in for a big shock because those defilements and hindrances are going to continue to manifest until one learns how to let them go. So the way that we can do this in meditation, in particular in Kriya Yoga, is especially when we get into the state of Paravasta, the after effect poise state of Kriya. Right? So there can be all sorts of things that are happening. Your mind is becoming more quiet, usually at that time. The body is starting to recede from the awareness. The breath is becoming more subtle. So in that state, when one is in that experience of Paravasta, if one is concentrated and very absorbed, one will suppress hindrances. But if one opens up a spacious awareness, then it allows one to be able to see hindrances arising. And that's what we want, because what we want to do is to let them go. The way that we create this open, spacious awareness is something called right collectedness. This comes from the teachings of the Buddha. It's also been called right concentration. Really what it is to have our awareness collected around the object rather than pinpointedly concentrated on it. When we pinpointedly concentrate, just like when people pinpointedly concentrate at the point between the eyebrows to try and see the spiritual eye, they're going to suppress everything. What we want to do is have an open, spacious awareness, and that allows us to recognize the hindrances as they are coming up. And when we recognize that they are there, that is when we can learn to let them go. We recognize that they're there, we release the tension in body and mind. Why is this so important? Because we're attached to those things, right? We've formed the attachment already, and it's just coming up to let us know, hey, you're attached to me. And if we say, oh, thank you very much, let me let go, releasing tension in body and mind, we release our attention from that hindrance, and then it just floats away. Especially then when we return back to our meditation to a wholesome state of mind, usually through a smile, then we can embrace our meditative experience again, if it's Paravasta or whatever we're feeling. If we're practicing devotion, if we're practicing loving kindness, whatever it is, it allows us to make that transition back. So it's really crucial that we have enough space in our awareness to be able to recognize hindrances as they come up, and then we use right effort. Right effort is really about letting go of unwholesome states as they arise. Hindrances arising, taking us away from our meditation object. Then we recognize it using mindfulness, because we've noticed how our mind's attention will move away from our meditation to the hindrance. If we remain glued there, we're going to feed that hindrance. And if we become identified with it, well, guess what? We've gone into sensual craving or aversion and create even additional complications. So what do we want to do? We just recognize that it's there. Our mindfulness is strong and we see that it's there. Then we release tension in body and mind. Then we smile and return back to our meditation. And so those two components, right collectedness and right effort, are absolutely essential for success in meditation. And really, that will take you to the highest aspects of meditation, the highest levels of meditation that you can actually experience and beyond, and actually recondition your mind and all your karmic seeds so that you're stripping away all the impediments in your consciousness. And so this process leads to true awakening, true realization, which is the essence of the spiritual path. So if you have any questions about this video, feel free to send me an email at info@modernkriya.com. Also check our website at modernkriya.com and our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.